Hello, good morning. My name is Martin Bölter, and this is video number two in the series of An American Experience. As I said in the introduction, I'm gonna introduce to you to the various chapters in this book. This is it, An American Experience by Martin Bolt. Of course, choose the name Martin Bolt because it's easier to remember. Now, the first chapter is called Strange Work Ethics and Racism. Now, we understand that I worked with a group of people. We went to various stores, businesses and stuff, and did an inventory for them, for various reasons. I don't want to go into detail on that. But what was interesting on that particular day was that the driver introduced a new person of that group of ours. Every once in a while you hire new people, obviously. And the new person enters the van. We used to meet at a certain spot, got there with our cars, been driven there, whatever have you, and enter the van, 12 passenger van. So this new person comes in the van and introduces himself a little bit, blah, blah, blah. I'm blah, blah, blah. I was sent by Blue and supervisor and all that. And the driver says, "Welcome to the monkey house." Obviously, that didn't do much to me, didn't ring a bell or whatever not. But me being from Europe, I did know that black people would react quite differently to such an introduction. So we had 3 black people on the van, or maybe 4. Was I think it was 4, and they kind of started disliking that term and expressed so and expressed themselves so. I kind of was kind of stunned because I never heard that before, or I never experienced the fact that that term could be offensive to black people, and obviously it was. And they said, "Oh, why do you say that? Now you're in trouble," and all that, whatever else was said. I don't remember in particular the details of the conversation, but the main tone obviously was that they were very offended. I guess it was comparable to, or would be comparable to, I don't know what the term, or what a deteriorating term would be for white people or Asian people or whatever not people. But for black people, one of the offensive terms you obviously cannot use and should not use because it is offensive to them is monkey house. And it was interesting for me because I'm from Europe, and me being from Germany, I didn't think any of it. I never was exposed to how other cultures or other colored people, rather than me being white, let's say, what names are made up for them, and even there are names, we don't really deal with it. I mean, me being born in Berlin, we have a very, very multicultural city, and all sorts and kinds of people from all walks of life live in that city and come to that city, obviously. And they're all sorts and colors, mixtures, what have, it's not yet. There is a district in Berlin where there is whites, and there's another district where is blacks, and then there is another district, there is Asians, and I don't know, Indian people, South American people, people from Russia or something like that. It's not like that, Of course, you have obviously neighborhoods, which are poorer, which are, or districts in the city for that matter, which are poorer, which are, have more high income people in them and all that. But the idea of only because somebody looks different than you, that would, if that would be a bad thing, is not embedded in my upbringing. And also, I lived there as a kid, I lived there as a teenager, I lived in Berlin slash Germany as an adult. I lived there for, let's see, 45 minus what, 15 years is 30 years. So I lived there for 30 years. And that subject is not something which I experienced or heard of. I had friends from all walks of life and family members for that matter. And that subject of calling differently looking people than you deteriorating names is just not something which I experienced in 30 years living in Germany or driving around Europe as a tour bus driver. And it was quite fascinating to me. And it also showed me that there is obviously, at least in this area of the nation, there is a deep embedded underlying, how would you call that? Resentment, rejection against different looking people for one reason or another. And that's actually not maybe the first instance, but amongst the first instances I encountered of racism in here, or at least in my work environment. I understand you cannot, companies cannot discriminate against race, religion, sex, age, various factors. But there is still that underlying resentment feelings towards people of different race than what you are. And that was one of my first experiences. Somebody called out, or somebody said, "Welcome to the monkey house," and the black people on the bus were enraged. Me, for myself, I was, I've been called whatever names, if you get into a argument with a stranger or at a club or party, whatever have you, and or a friend of friends who call you names and stuff like that. I see it like, okay, this guy's stupid. Okay, so I hardly know this person and he calls me all sorts and kinds of names. Okay, fine. So since this guy's stupid, I'm just gonna walk away. Simple as that. Nothing more I can tell or I can say to that guy or woman, whatever have you, to remedy that situation or to make that situation more calmer or make a situation calmer. Nothing much I can say. If you noticing that your counterpart is at a certain level of rage or of opinionated conversation, then you already know, you can spend the next 3 days trying to explain to him why he shouldn't use some words or why he shouldn't, discriminate against you or whatever not, or you just decided to walk off to de-escalate the situation, or because you just don't want to spend the time with this guy and explain to him, hey, you're stupid, of course in a nice way, you don't frankly and straight up say, oh, you're stupid, I walk off, I mean, if the situation calls for it, you can do that too. But there's always, if he's already that enraged, the danger of retaliation and escalation of that situation. So you just choose a quite nice exit. If it's not quite a nice, you choose an exit with a bang, whatever the situation might dictate. That is always your choice. You don't have to stay there and escalate an argument to a point where a fight or physical altercation is imminent. You don't do that, generally speaking. And that's what I would choose. And I had been in fights, and in the aftermath, looking back, I would say, okay, some of them was non-escapable, so I couldn't just easily walk away. But generally speaking, as you grow older, let's say you are above, I don't know, 25, or also depends on, upon a little bit on that situation. You always can choose, you have the experience to just walk away and make you exit. You don't have to stay there and risk physical harm, so to speak. Anyway, going back to that situation, that is and was new to me. And since then, I, of course, made several other experiences on that subject of racism. And that is, of course, unfortunate. But I did notice, and I do must say that it is an integral part of where I live. I don't know about the East State or the states on the east side of the United States, where I would assume the cultural mix is a little bit more integrated, and so it's not like groups and cities like you have here, where there's the majority is white, or when you hear the news, the cities where you have city districts, or neighborhoods where there's a certain ethnic group situated in that particular part of the city, and hardly anybody else outside of the ethnic group lives there. Something like that is it's not something which I experience coming from Europe. So it's quite new to me, and I wanted to comment on that. That's part of the book here, and the what I can say from that experience is, watch what you say. Simple as that. I mean, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe he was tired or whatever, not. But watch what you say, because apparently it can lead to some situations, warranted or not. It doesn't really matter. And in a work environment, it's supposed to be professional. It has to be professional. That's a promise. It should not come up, period. It did, and I wrote it down because I found this simply very interesting, that such a thing would be a big argument. Such a little comment becomes such a big argument. But some people don't take what they perceive as racial slurs lightly. They just not gonna let that go, and they just not gonna ignore it. They want to let you know, hey, in one way or the other, they're just gonna let you know you are wrong, and we are gonna retaliate or not. It depends on the situation, of course. So that's it for that American Experience video number 2.